At the request of several viewers, this is the first instructional video on repairing irreplaceable decals on motorcycle fairings damaged by road rash. In order to be instructive, I have gone into far more detail than my normal videos, and as such this video is significantly longer. If you are more interested in the end result than the journey, feel free to fast forward. I would not be offended. This is a small part of an ongoing project to cosmetically restore a 1999 Aprilia RS50 and will also be covered in those videos in less detail.
So this is going to be a segment on how to repair irreplaceable decals. So what I have here, this is actually a panel off a project bike that we're doing a series on at the moment, and this will be included in that series. It's a Aprilia RS50 1999, and it's basically been tipped over on one side, and you can see here that the fairing's been scraped, typical damage, and it's ripped out some of the decal here and on the decal here. Now the rest of the bike is in really nice condition. There is a couple of small little nicks on decals on the nose cone and a few little things like this here where you can see little chips out the edges of the decal, but in general on the rest of the bike the decals look like this bottom one. Really nice for the age of the bike. Now ordinarily I would probably say, okay, let's just get a decal kit, remove these, we'll repair the panel, and then we'll, repaint the panel, put new decals on. But I've looked, scoured the internet for several weeks now. I was able to find only one company doing replica decals for the Aprilia RS50. And I ordered those, but when I received them, they were nowhere near the quality of the originals. So the colors were different, and in particular, which I found on a lot of replica decals for bikes from the kind of late 80s all the way through the 90s, is they did a lot on the factory decals. They did a lot of what I call fading. So they had either metallic in them, or they did fading like this, where it's fading silver to black. And for whatever reason, the guys doing the replicas are not able to really replicate that exactly. So for instance, the decal kit I got, for starters, the decal was too thick. It was actually more like a sticker than a proper decal. And here, this was solid silver fading to solid black. So here would be the situation with that. I could replace all the decals on all of the plastics for this bike, but as I said, these are the only two are damaged. All the others are in perfect condition, so I can replace them all. But then I'm going to have a bike that clearly the decals have been replaced, they're not original, and worse, they don't match the originals, and that detracts from the value, it detracts from the originality and the look of the bike. So what I'm going to show you here is the technique. It's technically quite challenging. I've actually shown it in a video previously for a low mileage GSXR 750 we did, which had metallic faded decals. It was again impossible to get a decal to match, but I only really touched on certain parts of it and never went into the detail behind it. So I thought, since probably a lot of restorers are in this situation, same situation, you don't want to take 90% of the decals are good. Why would you want to remove them and replace them with aftermarket and they don't look right? So I'm going to show you in this video how to repair these decals and the panel, because obviously we're going to have to do panel repair, decal repair. Yeah, so I'm going to take you through the steps. Now, with this technique, it is great for retaining the original decals, and it won't just be these. I'll do touch-up where there's little nicks in all the decals, like here as well. You can see just a little bit of a nick out here. Now, for this to work, There is one caveat, and that is once I've repaired the decal, and there'll be various techniques I employ to touch up the decals or repaint the decals or fill the decal to the right height above the panel. In order to blend everything and for it to be robust, so if you spill gasoline on it or you're cleaning it or you're buffing it, you don't just pull all of those touch-ups out of the decals. I will clear the entire panel. So I'm going to repair the decals, repair the panel, but then I will clear everything. And because from factory the decal, that's the one thing that'll make it not standard, because from the factory the decal is on top of the clear, but that has to be done to make this to, you know, be sure that the repairs I'm doing will stand the test of time. Now, the upside of that is, once I've cleared all the decals, these decals are going to be far better protected than they were from the factory. So they'll be more UV resistant, you know, they'll be more resistant to cleaners, corrosive cleaners, or, you know, corrosive road conditions, salt, things like that. And we could go the next step and buff the panel, and then you've basically got show quality. You go from a damaged, badly damaged panel like this to a show quality panel. And, you know, for just that little bit of, you know, ding on the originality, which is the decals are cleared over. That's actually, when I'm doing restorations, that's my preferred approach anyway, just because I think it looks nicer, especially if you're going to show the bike, and it's more protection. And because I'm going to clear over this panel, I will actually clear over all the panels so that the bike matches, because again, I don't want to clear over these decals and then on the other side of the bike, which only needs very minor touch up, you don't. So, and it'll be obvious again, you walk up to the bike, you're going to see, right, that one side's had the repair being cleared over. So I will actually go through all the nose cone, tail unit, the left hand side panel. I'm going to clear them all. And anyway, that kind of works in my favor, because I am going to do paint correction on all the panels. And these panels come from factory. Excuse the noise. These panels come from factory with very, very thin clear. So if I'm doing paint correction, which I'll show you how I do that, and I've cut paint blending. I've done that in many videos, but I'll show you specifically what I do on this panel, because what I want to do is sand all the imperfections out of this clear anyway, because we want it to be, you know, like new. We'll sand this down, take as much out of the clear as we can to get as many imperfections out of the clear. Obviously I will try not to go through this clear into the base, but in some cases anyway, I'm going to be paint blending with the base coat anyway. And then whatever we can't get out through just sanding the clear back, we will paint blend and then re-clear the whole panel. And again, the panel from a quality perspective is going to look way nicer and have far better quality, because it's going to have, instead of this very, very thin clear that's easily damaged from factory, it's going to have, you know, probably 2 to 3 coats of really nice high quality clear on it. So that's another reason why, you know, I just do the other panels anyway, because it just improves the look and the quality of those other panels.
So the first step is to disassemble the panel and give it a thorough clean with simple green to remove any contaminants.
Okay, so yeah, I first just cleaned the panel down inside and out with some simple green, diluted simple green. Then I actually really soaked it well in panel prep, which you use for cleaning panels before you paint them, just so that I can make sure I get any contaminants off the decals as best as possible. You know, any kind of road grit, oil, any paint. I've got scuff marks from where the panel's rubbed up against other things, like here. You can see white scuff marks. So anything that I could easily get off with the paint prep I have. What I'm going to do now is go around the whole panel and take photographs of every little defect. Particularly the ones where I know I'm going to have to do some kind of paint touch-up. So where it's gone through the clear and into the base coat, or through the base coat into the panel. The reason being is once I start to sand this clear back, then it's some defects, if it's gone through the clear, some defects are easier to see when you sand the clear back, others are not so easy. So like here, not sure if you can see that on the camera, this has been gouged, and sometimes when you sand it back it's a little bit harder to see these. Anyway, so I'm going to photograph everything, and then that way when I come to do the touch-up, then I can cross-reference the photographs and make sure after I've got all the touch-up areas done, I'll check, make sure I haven't missed one. So yeah, that's the next. So take some photographs. Then what I'm going to do, I think I'll actually start scuffing the clear coat. Like I said, I'll probably there's a lot of rub marks, scuff marks. You can see here, probably here. These easily will just come out by sanding back, wet and dry sanding the clear back, and I only need to go a little way into it. It's very thin anyway, so I'll probably go because I'm going to use, that'll also be my key when I sand this. That'll be the key for the base coat blend, and also the clear. So what I'll probably do is go over this just with 1000 grit, lightly sand it all back, and then I'll bring you back once that's done.
These are areas of the decals or panel itself that will need to be repaired, touched up, or paint blended. And now I can scuff back the clear coat with 1000 grit wet and dry sandpaper.
Okay, so you can clearly now see where I've sanded back the panel and gone around the decals. Like I said, you don't have to get crazy and get too close to the decals. As long as you've got a good bond with the base coat and the new clear for the majority of the panel, areas like this won't be too much of an issue with the paint bond. And anyway, what I will do is I'll just come in and scuff this a little bit with a Scotch-Brite pad before we do the clear. So there will at least be a little bit of bite on that. So what we've got now is I've got most of the light scratches out with just the 1000 grit wet and dry. And what I'm left with now is just the deeper gouges, where it's actually gone all the way through into the plastic just here. Now, when I clear, I don't have to go crazy, because when I clear coat, the clear is definitely, I'm going to put good 2-3 coats of clear on, and that will definitely fill in a lot of the kind of just light scratches that are in the clear, original clear. But you still have to be a little bit careful, because some of these deeper ones you'll see even through the new clear. And anyway, I've got to paint blend them with the black base coat. Now for these deeper scratches, so you can see here all the way down to the plastic, similar one up here as well. Couple of options. You can sand those back down to the plastic and then just paint blend the base, but I prefer to, what I'm going to do is actually mix up some 2K black paint, like a chassis paint, very durable, it's very thick, and I'm actually going to just with a brush paint that into these grooves. And what that'll do is act like a filler, like a surface putty, but it's black paint. So the beauty of that is when I come to lay the base coat down and do the blend, you won't be able to see that behind. If you go in with behind the black, and I won't have to put a thick layer of the black base coat down, because that's the other thing in doing repair like this. The final paint blend, that last coat of paint blend, you want that to be as thin as possible, so that you know it's not an obvious hump on the surface of the decal or the surface of the panel. So and if you try to fill this with a traditional spot putty, it's either pink or it's blue, and then when you try to put the black base coat over the top, you've got to put far more layers of the base coat on to get that light color behind it to disappear. So this is by far, I found, the best technique. So yeah, going to get a nice thick, basically it'll be a chassis. Best one to use is a 2K chassis paint. I'm just going to put that in with a brush. We'll let that set. I may have to go over each of these, or maybe, you know, 2 or 3 times to get the thickness of paint. But it's not, you know, they're not that deep as scratches. It's just slightly gone into the surface of the plastic. So, and I'll actually be doing, when I come to show you how I repair this decal here, we're going to use the same technique, because the decal is raised from the surface of the fairing, because it's just stuck on top of the clear coat. So I can't just go in, I've got the red, you know, I can't just mask this, spray this red, clear coat it, and then, you know, walk away, because you'll see easily these dips and valleys where all the scratching is, and it'll look silly, because, you know, you'll clearly see that that's a decal and that's been painted over just there. So the trick here is once I've done all the fill work on these scratches in the black in these areas, I'll mask this decal, and then I'm going to use exactly the same technique for the decal. So what I'll do, I'll mix some red, and what I'll actually do is mix the base coat that I got to match this. I'll mix that. Normally that's 1-to-1 with thinner when you're spray painting it. But what I'll do to fill this and bring the level up so it's the same thickness as the rest of the decal, I'll mix that with a clear. So it'll be 1-to-1 with a clear coat, 2K clear coat. And then when I mask this, I'll probably, you know, I'll double tape this to get a nice thickness of the tape. And then literally I just have to blob in the base coat, clear coat mix, which will be the same color as this, roughly. And then just let that harden. And you can easily, very quickly build up a thickness there until this is pretty much level for the whole of the decal. And then I'll just be able to sand that back slightly, of course, you know, being sure not to go through the coating on the decal. And then we will come in and do the final paint blend with the red in just a standard 1-to-1 thinner mix and airbrush. And it'll be, because I've used the red with the clear as the filler, when I come in and do the final paint blend with the base, I only have to airbrush in a very thin amount, and you won't even know it's been done, as long as the color match is good. Anyway, got a little bit further into it than probably need to at this stage, but that's going to be the technique. So now next step is we're going to mix up that paint. I'm going to come in and fill these scratches. I'll have to let that cure probably overnight, and then we'll come back and we'll sand that nice and smooth so we can't feel it with our hands anymore. And then I think we'll be ready for the next step.
There's a couple of reasons I actually like to use 2K paint for this application. One is it's thicker and more robust than a 1K, making the repair more durable. The other is I don't need to put a layer of primer over the 2K paint before I do the base coat. Unlike if I was using a spot putty or filler. And this enables me to keep the thickness of the repair to an absolute minimum. Here, I've just masked off the decals before I start to sand back the 2K paint, so as to avoid damaging the decal itself.
Okay, so I've sanded back all the areas where I applied the 2K black just to fill in a lot of the scratches. There was 2 scratches. In the end, I did just put some surface putty in, just because they were just a little bit too deep to fill with the 2K paint. So when that surface putty is dry, I'll take that off, but it'll be the tiniest amount you'll see then, and I'll be able to cover that, no problem. But yeah, the rest of it came out good. So you can see here, all the surface scratches are gone. I also filled a little bit the edge of the decal where it was tore up. That came out okay. So you can see here what happens. So this is why you have to be really careful if you're sanding near the decal. In this case, I actually purposely sanded the decal because there was some gouges in it, but you can see how it takes the ink off and then just leaves the white backing. But I'm going to be spraying this with the air gun, so I'm not worried about that. So I did a bit of decal repair here. So now's the big one. What I'm going to do now is I've mixed up some red with clear coat 1:1, and I'm going to basically just let that set up a little bit so it's a little bit thicker than it is right now. So I'll let it go off slightly, and then I'm going to start filling in this area here where the decal's completely gone. So yeah, anywhere where I can see the white backing through the red, that's where I'm going to go in and touch up with this. This won't be the final coat because I'll airbrush the final coat on to blend it. This is just a mixture that I can use to fill the back up the decal and replace the bits of decal that are missing. This tape here, because I've got to build up the edge of the decal here, because obviously the decal sits on top of the fairing and it's got a slight thickness to it. I've double taped here, so that as I fill in here with the paint, it'll build up against the edge of the tape, and then when I remove the tape, I should have a nice edge to the decal, and you'll see that when I'm done. So yeah, that's I'll bring you back once I've gone in and touched it up. Once we've touched that up and it's set, then we'll sand that back so this is all flush. Yeah, and then basically it's going to be ready. I got a little bit of touch up to do on the white, but other than that, it'll be ready for getting the airbrush out when we'll do the final paint blend for the decal, the black bits, the red. I've got a little bit of silver to touch up as well, but not a huge amount. And then we'll be ready to clear coat. Okay, and I just thought I'd show you how I do the touch-ups. I like to use these touch-up, I guess they call them touch-up pens. So it's like a little cotton bud, but very tiny head on it. And then that's perfect, because you just basically apply some paint to this, and then you go in and you can easily apply that then, as you can see, like that, to the decal. Or you can use I use these for all kinds of paint touch-up. Yeah, and it's just a lot easier. You can control it better than a paintbrush.
So here I've filled all the scratches and the missing areas with the 2K mix, being sure to have plenty of thickness so I can sand it back level with the surface of the decal. Here is the decal after sanding the paint back with 1000 grit wet and dry. And here you can see the thickness of the paint repair matches the thickness of the decal.
Okay, so I've finished doing all the surface repairs to the decals now. So yeah, at this stage, it obviously still looks rough, but actually that's if I just run my hands over this now, that's all level and smooth. So, and then you can feel an edge here. So that's worked exactly as I want. So right now that just feels like one continuous decal, even though we know this bit was all ripped out. And the same here, where there was these big scrawks, I've gone over, I've sanded off, filled them with the base mixed with clear, and then I've sanded those back. And they're all nice and smooth now. So now the next step, we've finished all the repairs to the panel. Same here as well. You can see all those deep grooves and scratches that kind of ran through the whole thing. They've all been removed. So the next step now is to, I think what I'll do, I'll probably lay down the black base coat and blend that. So these few areas here where I did the repair, here, up in the corner here, and there's one on the side. Yeah, what we'll probably do now is blend in the black base coat. And then once that's set and cured, I'll come in and I'll mask off the decal, and then I'll start to paint blend the decal here where I've sanded it back. And the white bit here, that was, as I was describing before, that's just the base, effectively the vinyl underlay on the decal. So where I've filled these scratches and then sanded back, it's just took the colour, the ink off of it. But that's fine, because we're going to paint blend that anyway. Yeah, so I'm actually pretty pleased with the way that's turned out. We've managed to save both decals. They're nice and smooth. And once we've gone in and, we'll mask off all these areas, and I'll paint these I'm going to do that with an airbrush.
And now I can mask off the decals where I need to airbrush in the black base coat, and mask off the remainder of the panel with J-tape, which allows me to nicely blend the base coat on the larger areas. The J-tape giving a nice soft edge to the base coat as it blends with the original clear coat. Using a generic airbrush, I now apply the black base coat using a thinner layer as possible and avoiding getting too close to the J-tape.
Okay, so we've just done the paint blend for the black on the parts of the panel where we did the repairs. And now the next step is I think what I'm going to do now is airbrush the red on the decal. So, and then I'll finish up with just doing the black, gloss black on the bottom edge of the decal. And then it'll be ready for clear coat. So yeah, what I'll do now is I'm going to mask off all the areas of red that I need to paint. I'm going to be using an airbrush for that. Yeah, so once it's masked off, I'll put that on time lapse. But once that's masked off, we'll bring you back when I'm doing the airbrushing. Okay, so just a couple of things before we actually get to the airbrushing. So here you can see I'm using fine line tape to tape off the red. Because I'm airbrushing, I can target a small area, so it's not necessary for me to necessarily tape off the entire letters of the decal. I just need to be precise in the areas I'm going to be air gunning. The key thing is to avoid any tape that, so for instance, wherever I'm going to be taping these characters off, like here, because I have to tape the rest of the panel just to stop any overspray. The key thing is to avoid any paint lines in the areas that I'm going to be airbrushing. So as an example here, you can see I'm going to be airbrushing this, and what I want to do is where there's the white, obviously I need to protect because I don't want to airbrush that red. And so for areas that I need to cover up that are close to where I'm going to be airbrushing, they need to be precisely masked off. Because if I, for instance, just lay the tape, say I'm airbrushing this bit and I just lay the tape here and say, okay, that's fine, you know, and I'll mask off everything. When I pull that tape off, I'm going to have a line here, a very defined line of paint where I sprayed up to this tape because this tape has a thickness. When you clear coat, you're going to see that line. So we do what's called blending, which you can kind of see here I did with the black. You can see where I faded in the black base coat, but if I rub my finger on this, there's no line, you know, defined line between the two. So when I clear coat, that'll blend, and it's exactly the same thing here. So the white letters here of the Aprilia, they're close, they're basically so close to where I'm going to be painting that there will be overspray onto there for sure. So I'm precisely covering those. But where the Aprilia, the rest of the Aprilia lettering is far enough away from here, I can do, basically I can tape the whole thing off and not have to tape each letter because that would take forever. What I can do now is I've took some standard tape here, I folded it over, the edge over, and that creates basically a soft, what we call a soft edge to the tape. So now if I lay that down just along here like so, what I'll be able to do is I've now created a masked, this will be all masked off here, but for the edge I can now mask off the entire a prettier lettering. But I don't have to do precise covering like I've done here, because this edge here, when I come in and spray, because it's rolled over, it'll actually create what's called a soft edge in the paint. There'll be slight blowback of the paint under the edge of the strip, which gives you a fading effect. But it won't be able to go far enough under this to be able to get to the white lettering. So, and I'll actually do that wherever I'm just going to cut off the rest of the panel, like here. I expose this bit, which I'll be airbrushing. So here I can have a firm edge because I'm actually painting up to here. That's the edge of the character. I won't be painting here. So I'll just take soft edge tape like that again, and I'll put it across here. So I can blend paint up to here, and then when it hits this edge, it'll just soft blend under the tape. So that's kind of the easiest way to explain it. We're just trying to avoid hard edges unless the hard edge is along the character line, or along the decal line, or along a seam, because then you can hide it.
With the decal masking complete, I can mask the rest of the panel and airbrush in the red base coat.
Okay, so you saw how I masked off the red areas for painting, and I selected, or I mixed my own red to try to match as close as possible to the original. I sprayed it with the air gun, masked everything off, sprayed it with the air gun, and then I've just removed all the masking. And you can see it's come out really well. Now, obviously the paint I've laid down with the air gun is dried matte, which is normal. You would expect that, it's a base coat. But obviously the original finish on the decal is shiny. But when I clear coat, it's all going to look, it's all going to be gloss, and hopefully we'll get, you know, the best match possible between the two. You can also see where I had that I'd folded over that tape to make a soft edge. I've got a really nice soft blend from what the red that I painted into the original decal. So that worked really well. Yeah, and I'm really happy how this has come out, particularly the thickness of the piece of the decal that I replaced because it was missing. Now I've got a decision to make here, because when you spray paint onto a decal, you don't get the best bond. It's not necessarily like spraying on top of another, like a primer or anything like that. I did, where I sanded the decal to remove the scratches and stuff, of course it'll be keyed. But also when you're spraying with the air gun, you tend to have less solvent in the paint when it hits the surface, and so you don't quite get the penetration you would from a normal spray gun. And you can always tell because you get a slightly more matte finish and a slightly drier finish. So what I know from experience with this is now I've got to do the final touch up, which is the black on the bottom of the decal here. Now ordinarily the best way to do that would just be mask the black off and air gun black, nice and easy, done. But what I know is from experience, if I try to lay fine line tape, I've got to mask the red with tape so I can spray the black. What I know from experience is if I put fine line masking tape on here and it's left for any duration, half an hour, then I peel that tape back, it's more than likely going to pull the paint, the red paint that I've just put on, it's going to pull it off the decal. So I've got a couple of options here. I can try to paint it by hand, or alternatively I can clear coat the entire panel as it is now, just with one coat of clear or 1.5 coats of clear, let that set up, and then I can scuff that back, and then I'll be able to come in and mask the red, because it's easy to mask the red once it's got clear coat over the top. Now, given I've only got these 2 areas to touch up, or 3 areas to touch up, I think what I'm going to do, I'm going to opt for the touch up by hand. So I'm going to do a remaining touch up on the panel by hand. Hopefully I can keep a steady enough hand and get a straight enough line here. I think because it's going to be buried in clear, you can get away with a little bit anyway. So yeah, I think that's just a lot less work, less risks, you know, because if I have to clear it all, let it set up and then sand it back, you know, that's 2-3 days gone. So there's always an issue that I may get an issue with the clear for some reason, and then, you know, once the clear's on, it's difficult to go backwards and try to recover the part. So I think the least risky route is to do that by hand. So I'll do that now. Once that's done, the panel's going to be ready for clear coat.
Prior to this, and off camera, I also did the paint touch-up on the IP decal and white stripe. And with all the paint blend and touch-ups complete, I can now clear coat the entire panel to provide the ultimate protection.
Okay, and so here we now have the panel with the clear coat on. So I've put 3 good layers of clear coat, which will give all the repairs we did on the decals plenty of protection. And then once this is cured in 3 or 4 days, I'll most likely cut and buff it just to give it that extra little bit of gloss finish. And also where the clear goes over the repaired areas, if that repaired area is slightly raised because, you know, the extra thickness of the base coat paint, that is reflected in the clear coat. So, you know, what I can do is cut back the clear coat and then polish it, and it'll look fantastic. But I'm very happy with the way that's come out. You can see, you know, compared to what it looked like before. So yeah, so that's basically concludes this how-to video. This fairing is part of a bigger project. We're working on an Aprilia RS50, and we're doing all the panels. This was the worst panel, and that's why I wanted to do a how-to video on it. But we will be doing some small decal repairs to some of the other panels, but no need, you know, I'll show those on the there'll be a specific video on the RS50, the entire project, and I'll just include some some of those panel repairs in that video. Okay, so thank you for watching. If you like this type of content, please leave a comment. I do get requests more and more for how-to videos. So yeah, if this is the kind of content you like, please like the video, leave a comment, and if you're not subscribed to the channel, please subscribe.